Today on Off and On the Clock, just two of us, John and I, running a little pick and roll game. Going to talk some best ball game theory, some news items, and then we'll hop in one of Underdog's newest tournaments. We got the Dalmatian up on the site. This is Off and On the Clock today with Pete and John. Let's roll. So I didn't get the doctor's note from Nez. What's his excuse today?
I mean, this guy's world traveler at this point, man. He's in Disney World right now.
What? My God.
Yeah. Just a little last minute influencer trip.
Yeah, I mean, what the chemtrails he hadn't even settled on his Portugal trip, and now he's off jet setting again. Must be nice. Well, at least us true grinders show up here every day to play on the platform of the people.
Absolutely. Hey, speaking of platform there, I was half expecting you to come on here and tell me that you platformed us, Pete.
No, no, only Liam. Yeah, we were just on the Swolecast with Liam, and there are probably lots of new people in the best ball community that don't remember. It was the summer before he won Best Ball Mania. He reached out to me about chess streams, like not even doing best ball. He was like, "Hey, I've been thinking about doing this. It'd be fun." I was like, "You know what? This actually sounds fun." I was like, "Come teach me chess. I'll do some streams." This was back when I was just like willing to do whatever on my YouTube channel. And so, yeah, if you want to go back in the archives, you can watch Liam teach me chess. And I will tell you this, nothing has stressed me out more on stream of anything I've done over the past 5 years or whatever than playing chess in front of people and being a novice player. Like I started dreading those streams because of like the anxiety. It's like I can do basically anything else and just be fine, roll with the punches. That terrified the shit out of me.
Well, it's like it's low key putting like your intelligence in quotations on display. Yes. Right? Yeah. Like, cause I had a really hard time initially making like poker coaching stuff because I was like, I'm winning behind closed doors and I have a good sample. What if I just get torn to shreds and ridiculed because of how I'm playing in real time now? Right. So I do feel you on that level.
Yeah, it is funny. Yeah. You don't want to, it was honestly, it's like I was willing. I mean, I was a novice chess player, so I was like willing to look stupid. It was more just like if there was something so painfully obvious that you're it's like, okay, now what's the move here? And you're like, fuck, I don't know what it is, and it's supposed to be obvious.
Yeah, but the modern day equivalent. The modern day equivalent of missing a week 17 correlation that is top of ADP.
I know. The team I just drafted on the Swolecast is one of my favorite teams I've drafted. We didn't get to talk about it a ton because, we're dicking around, but it was rare for me, just kind of how it lined up. I had all of my week 16 stacks all set up nicely with bringbacks with no week 17. So on that one, I became the true week 16 bro, just seeing if I can get that team there.
Nice. I've found myself, I've been doing a couple more recently, like just kind of like one a night, playing catch up right now on the BBM stuff. And I found myself like funneling to certain builds over and over again. I'm kind of in lockstep with you right now with some of the elite tight end stuff there, but I found myself a lot of 2-6-8-2s that have like at least one of the upper echelon quarterbacks and one of the upper echelon tight ends. And I really want to push myself to do, something experimental like you're alluding to there that like funnels me in a different direction in terms of build type.
Yeah, that's such a good point because we talk about it, say like round 2. Like one thing is, I don't want all of my Garrett Wilson teams to be paired with Marvin Harrison because just ADP correlates that way. But I think it's easy to forget that you end up with almost like pocket pairings. Like you said, if you're always doing elite QB, it probably also means you're always doing late round quarterback too. So you're going to have a ton of like Josh Allen with, I can't say Bo Nix or whatever, or yeah, Josh Allen with a Bo Nix or with a Drake May. I was thinking of the bye week issues there, but that is also a concern. It's like, even if you're mixing up the players, you might have like the same pockets for the onesies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing actually that's interesting that you brought up the bye weeks thing, because one of the things I challenged myself with the other day on stream, and I did it behind closed doors after as well, was pairing two quarterbacks that I think will be seldomly paired together. So like 2 shared bye weeks, but also within like the first 15 picks of quarterback, something like that, and then tacking on like QB 30 to it and turning what should in traditional sense, because of draft capital spent, be a 2 quarterback build, but making it a 3 because they share the bye week. So just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a little too gal brain and a little too contrarian in thought process, but yeah, I've been messing around.
It's so funny. I actually this week for Fantasy Life, because I just did my 50th draft, I'm doing kind of a portfolio, my first portfolio review, because I basically up to this point just been like ripping it in. I don't really care too much about my exposures, but I was like, all right, this will be a good chance to kind of review things. And then I was using the Fantasy Life Best Ball Hub, which by the way, free tool. You just upload your CSV, see your exposures, also all of your week 16, 17, 15 stacks. And I noticed a weird quirk that this is kind of in line with what you're saying, where I was pulling up my Chicago Bears stacks and I was looking at them, and I have Caleb pretty evenly paired with all those pass catchers. And then I was looking at my week 17 stacks, and I had like a ton of Sharbs, a decent amount of JSN, ton of Noah Fant as bringbacks. And I noticed I had no Tyler Lockett, and I've drafted Tyler Lockett a decent bit. And I was like, I wonder why. And then I'm like, oh, it's because Caleb Williams and Tyler Lockett go in like the exact same range of the draft. And I was like, that's a weird one where it would be really hard to get those guys paired in a normal ADP room without reaching or catching a big faller. And that's another unique thing of like, man, you might want a Tyler Lockett bring back in week 17, but ADP would never funnel you there normally.
Yeah, now I want it even more so. Now that you've like brought that one up, maybe we should run a show or a thought process on that. Maybe I'll upload my exposure stuff as well, and we can come up with some pairings like that within same ADP pairings that we think will be like combinatorially unique by just scrolling like 8 to 10 picks in the middle rounds.
Yeah, and I mean, the simplest way to do that would be thinking of what teams play each other in week 17, where they both have players with a very similar ADP. And those players are probably not going to be on the same team a bunch. I guess you could say if that ADP was correlated to the turn, then maybe people are double tapping it. But if it's in the middle of the board, it's not happening as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
The what did you say? You referenced before we came on a Leone pod, but was there? You said there was some game theory stuff that had been knocking around in your head recently.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about a little bit on the last show, and it was kind of on the backs of like Leone's updated like simulations. Then Leone did the solo pod that I was listening to this morning, so it's like kind of like fresh in mind, just talking about like historical data and how it's like we can't take it like at face value because of like we can't filter out who are the drafters that funnel themselves to week 17 builds. They're obviously quote unquote sharper drafters, blah blah blah, right? So I found that stuff very interesting in terms of like the onesies positions, because he did the research for the quarterback stuff and having like 3 quarterback stacks in the final stuff playing like decently well. And as I alluded to earlier, I'm finding myself do like 2-6-8-2s maybe too often comparatively to that. But yeah, like the way it plays for the onesies position and the like exposures thing that I was thinking through was I respect people that are like taking stands right now. It was actually on the back of the conversation of the article you wrote about hit him with the gritty, like the don't tap the glass there.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like I respect like the super outliers that get creative and try stuff, even if it results in them paying the rake. And I equated it to like the poker stuff of like everyone was taught like play tight aggressive, and wait till the bubble and then make all your big moves then. And then other players came in and redefined the game by being loose aggressive. So what does loose aggressive strategy look like for us in terms of best ball, right? And I thought there was a very intelligent way of doing it. And gritty is closer to it than I think most people are right now. And I think getting crazy exploitative in certain pockets of the flex makes a lot of sense. But I think getting crazy exploitative at the onesies positions would be detrimental. It detrimental in quotations, because it'll swing the pendulum of variance the furthest, which, it can work in your favor, obviously, as well. But being densely correlated around like a position that doesn't separate to the same extreme as some other picks could was kind of like my thesis.
Well, and on top of that, you think about building the best possible version of a team often centers around what you're doing with one of your 2 to 3 quarterbacks, right? Like, okay, you have a quarterback. All right, we know we want them stacked. We want to have access to winning 1.5 million. We probably want to bring back, all of these things you're doing. So if you're always doing the same onesie, it's not even just a concentration on that. It's the concentration on the rest of the entire player pool, because now it's limiting. All right, now I need to use picks on just this team's week 17 matchup. And all of a sudden you like wipe out an entire center of the board, which I think makes it hard. I have a video coming out this week on the Deposit Kingdom channel where I'm going to do like 10 takeaways from 50 drafts. And one of the things I was talking about is how like extreme structures limit your flexibility. And it's like, I like the idea of extreme structures because I think they'll be underutilized by the field. And there's definitely some uniqueness elements to it, but it just boxes you out. Like if you go true 0 RB and you take 6 straight wide receivers, like that's very viable in this landscape. You can pull it off, but then you have no margin for setting up backdoor stacks. It's like you just unclick wide receiver. There's only 3 positions left you can actually draft. And it's not that you can't pull it off, but I do think going back to what you were saying too, about like, if you're loading up on one player to make that logically work across the portfolio, you are removing large parts of the player pool that you no longer have access to.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's just like you condense the decision-making tree to like just like one channel from the top down, opposed to, it's funny that you bring up the starting with like 6 wide receivers or something. I did that this morning. I think I started with 5 and then did a McBride fall plus Kyler stack to start. So
That's
a 1-5-1 start there. And then I think I landed the plane like decently, but I can see exactly what you mean, because my instant thought process to that was the wide receivers in which I should be taking here should give me backdoor stack options for my quarterback, opposed to, hey, I need to leave 2 spots on this roster to take Danny Dimes plus Slayton at the very end, right? Because naturally you want to pair with the upper echelon of capital spent.
For sure. And then I think it is, you have to look at your team and the players. Like sometimes you have like Houston and Baltimore and KC people, and you're like, holy shit, I'm at like 5 or 6 pass catchers. I like this group, but the quarterbacks are all off the board. And I now have to think through, how do I accomplish my stacking initiatives here around this team? And I do think that's kind of the pitfalls of it. It's the same with like hyper fragile. Like how many rooms could you start with 3 running back values? And it's like, well, guess what? There's going to be about a running back value in every single round the rest of the way. And you're only going to be able to click maybe one like the rest of the way. And so I'm thinking about that a lot, of like, how do I make the best possible pick in every single round? And sometimes it is passing on the first or second value that you get.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like you don't always have to capitalize on that slippage if you're keeping your entire portfolio in mind. Like that would be like the mantra.
Yeah, like I guess like, so on the draft I just did, and it's obviously fresh in my mind. I think this was honestly my first Barkley share. I got him at pick 27. I was like, all right, that's my Barkley moment here. And then, oh yeah, nice. I have this pulled up here. And then I got ETN 10 picks past ADP as well. And I was like, man, I like both of these clicks here. This might be hard. But then I started thinking, look, I have these Miami guys. At the time, I didn't have the Jax thing fully set up, but with ETN, I'm like, I think I'm pushing for a late round quarterback room. And I think, okay, how am I going to do these 2 early running backs? I am going to catch up at wide receiver, but I'm going to be okay on punt QB, and I'm going to be okay at punt tight end. It just so happened Kittle ends up falling 8 picks past ADP. And I'm like, all right, I'm still doing that. But I basically was trying to think through, can I make this work structurally with the players who are already on the team? And knowing Tua was going to be available for me, and I wasn't going to have to spend a top 100 pick on a quarterback, I basically felt like I could scoop up this value and head down a pairing that is going to be very unique, at least for my portfolio.
Yeah, very much so. I think this is a pretty sharp implementation of like creating uniqueness through ADP fallers, knowing that you're going to play 150 of these, comparative to, flipping the board and taking Saquon with CeeDee Lamb over and over again, or something of that magnitude. It's like, take this when the room gives it to you, opposed to flipping the board and forcing the issue.
For sure. And And this is the thing too, like I did it with Tua, right? Like I took Tua at 147 despite having Hill and Waddle, because I was like, I don't care. Like snipe me. I had already locked up Brock past ADP with Kittle. I knew I had stuff set up. I kept trying to build outs. I had taken Palmer at 118. I was like, all right, let's put Herbert in the queue. I knew I had these outs, and I was like, I'm gonna be fine if someone wants to snipe me on that. And then thinking like, all right, now I'm getting 25 picks, 2 rounds of ADP value. This is going to be a more unique to a double stack than almost everyone else who takes these two and takes him at ADP or around at past ADP.
No, yeah, that's sweet. Very nice build. Landed that plane nicely. The question I was going to ask you there with this one is, obviously you set up the Bo Nix, and was it Mims or Franklin with the last one there?
Sutton and Mims. Yeah.
Sutton and Mims. Yo, yeah, so you gave yourself the out with Sutton as well. What is your favorite, like, in this structure, if you got froze out and you didn't set up those stacks early and you were just like, okay, this is round 17, 18, and I have to click a mini stack? Or would you rather take like Justin Fields unstacked on this team? Like, what would be your thought process for like a one skinny at the very last 2 picks?
Yeah, I do think, and I know because I just reviewed my portfolio, and the ones I do it the most with are Patriots, and then secondly would be the Giants with Jones, and then all of those late options. And then I have been doing a decent amount of field stuff, generally skinny stacked, maybe with Roman Wilson, maybe even with just like Jalen Warren. And even I've done it before where I had like 2 Chiefs guys and I just grabbed Fields as a third QB. But in doing that portfolio review, and Madison Parkhill actually had a really good article up on his Substack recently about thinking through the Drake May risk and basically making kind of a case of you can get access to kind of the Drake May, ceiling scenarios without taking Drake May by just taking these rookie wide receivers and the Patriots pass catchers. And then you free roll it, right? Like if Jacoby doesn't ever let go of the job, like those guys should be doing well, or Drake May comes in and you don't take on that risk. And I was looking at my Drake May and Daniel Jones exposure, and I'm like, this kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. And one thing that's been in my head is like, I want to make some of those similar bets, Bo Nix being one of them. I want a little more JJ McCarthy. I want a little more Bryce Young. The same cohort of like backdoor stack guys where I don't want to be just like overly concentrated in the riskiest version of those.
Okay. Yeah, I like that angle of like you encapsulate the upside by not even taking the quarterback narrative as well there. I guess the same could be true of like, maybe not to the same extent. I was going to say like someone like Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, where it's like you don't take on the risk of the quarterback position and you just hope one of those two emerge as WR2 there in the same capacity. I guess the Denver guys work as well. I think the grossest one that I've done so far was Michael Mayer with Gardner Minshew as like 17, 18. That was that's my grossest scroll the F down right now.
I don't know what. It was with Jack on the club, and he had floated the Gardner Minshew stuff. And I think we had talked about it. I had floated it on this show of like, hey, we were clicking Gardner Minshew all the time in the dailies last year as a scroll the F down guy. And then he was getting in these crazy game environments. Yeah, I have not done the Mayer click yet. I haven't done the Minshew either, but it's funny. I just wrapped up a slow, it was one of these, let me see if I can find it here. Where I did, sorry, this is bad. Maybe it was a hound dog here. I want to try to find this. Oh,
I've seen a lot of little Bo Nix clicked at the end.
I know. Anyway, what I was trying to pull up was this team where, God, I am blanking. Sorry, John, what were we talking about? What did you just say here?
The Gardner Minshew one. We were talking about how we were clicking on him in the dailies, and then.
So I had a team where I took Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, and I was just like, I don't need AOC for this team. Like, I will get the exposure to this offense being good and these guys through these 2 picks. And like, I'm just not going to force the uncertainty at the quarterback situation, because I think that's really what this comes down to is if you are going to take on the risk. And I think the reason why I've been willing to do it with May, Jones, and Fields is because we have, well, not with May, but with the other 2, we've seen what a ceiling performance looks like for them, and it's real. And then Drake May has the tools of a guy we know who could have it. So it's like, then with Minshew, I don't think you're getting that ceiling and you're taking on the risk.
Yeah, no, entirely fair. What are your overarching thoughts about three quarterbacks? As you were clicking through, there's a decent amount of three quarterbacks, but like this one, for instance, you're not allotting a lot of capital at the three quarterbacks there, but like, are you kind of like slowly pivoting your mindset to be like between the onesies positions, I'm going to spend 5 picks every single draft?
Yeah, I guess I do find myself not doing as much elite quarterback just because I'm taking elite tight ends there and trying to stay ahead at wide receiver. So I do think that's funneling me to a decent, but I would say it's funneling me more to just non elite quarterback builds. And still, I'm doing like a lot of like 2 quarterbacks in the window where I take like a Caleb Williams and a Brock Purdy or like whatever those kind of combos are. I've been doing, but yeah, I think because I'm so willing to push stacks and never really reach for them, I do end up pulling that emergency cord lever a lot. And now I just have to be honest with myself about like how much Drake May, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy do I actually want?
Yeah, no, fair enough. It's very interesting to me because like a lot of these builds from what I'm seeing look somewhat different than me because I was kind of like eating one elite quarterback alongside it because I spend my quote unquote luxury pick earlier, but that might just be a flat out mistake. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think through here, but now my mind is getting kind of mixed around here with the is it better to take a 0 at the quarterback position in the 18th round than take a probable or potential not probable but potential 0 in like 10 through 14 at the flex position as a dart throw long shot contingent play.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the 0 is pretty catastrophic either way. Just again, like I mean, part of the Leone stuff, he republished that stuff, and it's like all of the levers we're trying to pull, none of them are as important as just having live players. And I do think it's interesting, probably through the lens of advancement versus getting to the playoffs, right? Where once you're in week 17, if you have 3 quarterbacks and one of them isn't playing, like you still have like a similar amount of outs likely to the rest of your field. Whereas if you're down a skill position player and you're also working under the assumption that you have a lot of overlapped players too with the field, like that starts to feel a little scary. But yeah, I think we want to be avoiding zeros no matter what, but it feels like avoiding them at quarterback is actually should be the easiest because it is so much an information thing of like who's starting. Obviously, we have these ambiguous situations like the Steelers that we have to kind of sift through. Yeah. But I do think we have the most information at that position.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you think there's any merit to like the back end, tail end of season, quarterbacks changing over, quarterbacks getting replaced, blah, blah, blah? Like I've heard a lot of FUD around the potential of Geno getting replaced and them just trusting Sam Howell late down the stretch if things go belly up. But at that point, maybe this is the importance of stacking is if things go belly up on a Geno team, well, you probably took DK and Ken Walker or Lockett early, so that team's probably dead anyways.
Yeah, I think that's how I probably think of it. I mean, the Sam Howell one is like an interesting one. I think of all of those situations we're talking about, he's definitely the least likely to get a job without something kind of crazy going. But it's how do you process that? Is it like, oh, I want to take some stabs of Sam Howell, or is it like I really would rather just attack the Seattle offense without the quarterback?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, this is why I thought the using quarterback was such a fun example is because like Chip's kind of alluding it in the chat here. It's like, congrats, he drafted Joe Flacco last year. You got QB 16 and a few 20-point games. It's like, it's the hardest position to separate and put up outlier scores at, right? And it's like the one where mean projection will always be the highest as well. So it's kind of like just going to battle as long as the rest of your teams get there. Getting densely correlated around like one late quarterback would feel just inherently bad. So like, use the Drake May example. Like we know Pat loves Drake May. We know the ceiling of Drake May, but it's like, what do you win when you win? Even if Drake May puts up a top, 10, 15 offense and he is QB, 12 on the season? It's like, does it matter? Like, it probably helps your advance rates 7 to 8%, but does it end up mattering in the totality of the contest? That was kind of like my overarching thought process about like not wanting to like get dense around isolated quarterbacks and instead do what you kind of were doing with those drafts of like give myself outs and then just scatter shot intelligently.
Yep. For the audio listeners, we did just hop in a Dalmatian draft. We're at 111 here. John, by ADP, we're looking at Garrett Wilson, Gibbs, Harrison, London. I often click Garrett here, but do you have any other ideas?
Yeah, Garrett, Gibbs, or London for me. I'm good with any of them. Gibbs is probably the most likely to come back of the group, so taking Garrett Wilson first makes sense.
Yeah, I've definitely found it hard getting creative with my late round one picks. Whereas like I'm willing, like if you want to be like Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Smith, like I'm open to hearing like anything at this turn. He goes Harrison, London. So we could grab the Gibbs Wilson, which is a little harder to get in rooms.
Yeah, I'm good with that actually. We did the push-up Waddle in the time box contest the last one. Which I mean is totally fine. I honestly think like we talked about it a little bit on stream because I started similarly. I think I started London Gibbs in the BBM the other day and just talked about like the bull case scenario for Gibbs to be like the bull case scenario for Gibbs is RB1 overall. You know, like he is everything you look for in terms of explosive pass catching ability, good playoff schedule, in quotations, like good as in like high implied game totals. I keep going back to the well on the Lions having the most amount of games over 48 total thus far this season with 9 of them, plus the dome boner. Like if anything happened to David Montgomery and he got that goal line work associated with this, he has just as good a case as Bijan and CMC, in my opinion, to be RB1.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir with me. I think the thing would be, how much of this ADP is assuming that kind of like ceiling scenario, which is definitely in the cards. It's whereas I do think if you told people you're going to get pretty similar to what you got last year with maybe a little bit more, like he wrestles away just a little bit more from David Montgomery, he's probably going in like the Achane range, right? Where he's maybe more like an early round 3, but it's because we're saying like, man, it's so easy to tell yourself the story of if he has this full backfield to himself that he's the 101.
Yeah. I did want to bring to everyone's attention the chat's talking about how Crutches suggested in the Discord that the Dalmatian is a week 16 tournament because of the structure here, Pete. 4 out of 12. So it's the classic higher dollar, more teams get through the regular season, but then 1 out of 5, out of 8, and then a small 23% final there. So the hardest week to get through is in fact week 16. Should that change our, drafting principles, change our mantra at all?
I agree with that snap take. I honestly had not even looked at the advancement structure when we clicked into it, but yeah, it's 1 of 3, 1 of 5, 1 of 8, and then 23. And then just looking at the prizes. So 23rd is getting a 10X. If you make it to the finals, you're getting a 10X on it. It's still a pretty big leap in that first place is 30 times bigger than 10th. Mm-hmm. So, but when you think about the 23 and getting there in that 1 of 8, I do agree that if you were going to pull the lever, I think I would flip it. Like for me in Best Ball Mania, I prioritize week 17, week 16 as the secondary. And with the caveat being like, I think you can do both. I think you do kind of flip that preference for this.
Yeah, that checks out to me. That was a astute point by those who are grinders on the site here.
Yeah. Because, and so if you finish top 10 in this, then you're looking at like a 40X there on your buy-in at 4K. I'm going to assume for most people, that's like what would make it move for them, like getting top 10 in this contest. You show up to the finals. But yeah, that 1 of 8 is going to feel hard after getting through like 1 of 3, 1 of 5. Like you're like, I'm cruising along. This is a good team. and then you're going to meet all the other good teams in a 1 of 8.
Yeah, the way it advances too, there might be clusters of a lot of overlap in player pool too.
That happened for sure. And like some of my, I don't know if it was Bulldog, Big Dog, whatever last year, but man, there was a ton of overlapping clusters. And because those were similar, it was like a 5-person, week 16 pod or whatever. And then it was just like, do you have Amari Cooper, George Pickens, or T. Higgins on these teams? I did not.
I did similarly in that regard last year with one of these Dalmatian bullets. I did 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week, and I just was like, it's easier to get through 4 out of 12 if they hit on both, and I did hit on both because it was Dak and Shroud. So don't be results oriented with doing it because of the result, but like it was my lever to pull of like it's easier to get through this 4-12 and then give myself 2 different quarterbacks than anyone else if both these quarterbacks happen to smash and push them through. It was kind of like a Galbrainy weekly winners thing. Whether it's good or not, I don't know, but it's something I did do.
Yeah. No, I like that. We are about to click here at 311, getting a little Laporta fall here. We'll see if OMG scoops him up. He does scoop him up. So by ADP, we're looking at Henry, Zay, the quarterbacks, Kelsey. You got a favorite here?
I'd scroll a little bit unless you wanted to do like Zay plus Lamar and be unique on this side, or Zay plus Henry. I'm good with Henry. I'd take T. Higgins over Zay though.
Okay. I'm down to mess around. T would be the only other kind of wide receiver that I am comfortable probably taking here. So I'm definitely good with that. I feel like T. Higgins is not in vogue right now. There's not too many people like, pounding the table for T these days.
No, I think people are scared about the not showing up to mandatory camp and not signing the tender yet, but we've seen this play out multiple times now.
Yeah.
That team has one of the starkest increases in expected team totals per game too, but like that might just be on the back of now Burrow's healthy compared to last year.
Yeah, this is a team too, where we can start looking, between Rodgers, Goff, Burrow, we could sometimes get at like a nice price in this range. It kind of pushes me with no correlation to sidestep the elite quarterbacks here.
I'm good with it.
So
let's get the Rams in 16. Good with Henry, good with Cooper, good with tight end.
Let's there's been some fun Derrick Henry buzz. Let's try to build let's try to build this out.
Yeah, the Harborough interview that Coach Speak Index put out there was pretty cool, where it's like we're Galbraining our ways to finding the other Baltimore guys touches, and he just comes right out and says, yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff we can do with him out of shotgun and just feed him.
Yeah. The one thing if we had more time to discuss that I would have brought up is like, I'm fully comfortable making this click with the assumption like we're almost for sure going to need to take wide receivers at 59 and 62, because I think in a room like this and knowing how these, like you can get to pick 83 and it's like, JSN, Christian Watson, it's like you're staring at like Jamison Williams or like Cortland Sutton at pick 83. At that point, you're trying to you're really behind. So that's the only thing for me with this build is like, it makes it really hard, I think, to do elite tight end, or like in that other draft, I was in a similar spot, Barkley and ETN through 4 rounds or 5 rounds. And then I needed to get wide receivers in 5, 6. And then I got the Kittle fall in 7. But here, I just think we're going to be on the wrong side of a wide receiver run if we don't take 2 wide receivers here.
Yep, that checks out to me. I mean, I'm fine with it. I know we're both kind of like proponents of the elite tight end right now. Is there any FUD for you with like the Travis Kelce one? I've heard it both ways. I've heard Hayden say he thinks he's going to rise when we remember who Travis Kelce is. And then, the bear case is obviously, well, this is the deepest wide receiver room Mahomes has maybe ever had. And, he's 33 years old and sat out portions of last year at the tail end there to rest instead of getting his 1,000-yard bonus, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I was just going to pull up this tweet
35.
because
There you go.
I saw this from Levitan earlier. Travis Kelce will be 35 in October. And then the quote he was pulling was from, let's see, it's my job to make sure that Coach Reed has full confidence in me whenever he needs me out on the field or whenever I'm out on the field. Kelce said, as much as I want to be out there every single play, I understand that it's for the betterment of the team when I'm not. I'm more comfortable with that right now because of the guys we have in the room, which certainly sounds like not full-time player, save me for the stretch run, which is exactly what happened last year.
Yeah.
I think the way I've been thinking about it, and I am slightly underweight Kelce, like relative to what I, being pretty overweight, like McBride and Andrews and Kittle, is like, I think you could argue that it's kind of like priced in, where it's like in this weird way, you're almost treating Kelce like a rookie wide receiver where you're like, yeah, maybe he doesn't help me as much in the regular season. And then he's a playoff hammer. Like if you get similar production that you got from, granted, that was the NFL playoffs. Like if you got that in the fantasy playoffs, like you're feeling really good about this at that cost. I guess the question is, are they saving him for the NFL playoffs? And then he's not even doing anything in 16, 17. Then you got issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's relevant to the strength of the team. And I mean, if you're betting on the team to be good and you're betting on stacking that team, he's probably not going to be there for at least one of those final 3 weeks then.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of where, yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs are too. They're like the funnest. They are the funnest double stack team, and it's expensive to do so. But it's like, because there's so much uncertainty across all four of these guys. I mean, I think you can talk about wide ranges of outcomes for Kelce, Marquise, Worthy, and Rice. Like making a bet on two of them, knowing like if things go south for the other two, the other two are going to be vaulted up in such a big way as being like the surefire 1-2. Maybe Marquise Brown is bad. Maybe Rashee Rice gets suspended for a long time. Boom, Xavier Worthy, Kelce, like locked and loaded. Or you can do that mix and match with all of those guys. But it's such a fun way to double stack it, knowing like it's really likely that two of them are overvalued and two of them are massively undervalued.
Yeah, no, that's well said there. I just keep thinking back with that quote that we just brought up there. I think back to like the tail end of like Gronk's career. I mean, I don't think Kelce's body is that beaten down and he hasn't retired and then come back. But like, I don't know, it just scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's very scary. It's why I've been like, he's starting to feel a little bit more like Laporta to me, where I'm like, do I want to pay for this when I could just get McBride, Kincaid, Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, not only cheaper, but without like the age risks? I think Jaden Reed for sure. And then we can kind of talk. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm good with Jaden Reed.
Are you not a Reed guy?
Well, I'm a Reed guy now because of everything that Sean has said and that sort of thing. But our guy Hayden doesn't like it that much. So split opinions on that one. I love the way they manufacture touches for him. And I think, rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. If we think that offense is just improved and whatever, that I said LaFleur and McVay. I put them together and called him LeVay. LaFleur will find like creative ways to get the ball in his hands because he's that dynamic playmaker for them. So I can see it both ways.
Yeah, and to me, it's more just like we're probably going to be, reaching for another wide receiver here, and so at least getting the one guy at a slight ADP value. He again also opens up some nice quarterback options for us since we're not going to be going elite quarterback. And I'm glad that we didn't even have to deal with the spicy Marks temptation. And I don't think like on a team where we have Gibbs and Henry, like Rachaad White or Kenneth Walker. So I think I'm happy to go to wide receiver here, and I'll let John, dealer's choice, your favorite name here.
I think it's Ridley on this roster.
Okay, talk. I haven't clicked him a lot, so talk to me about him or why for this specific roster.
I just think because we feel like we're behind, that we want some of those like bankable early scoring weeks. Like Reed is kind of like bang bust. I mean, so is Calvin Ridley because he is a little bit like deep threat, new team, maybe bad quarterback play ? But the Rome like ceiling dart shot to me feels like better as your fourth wide receiver when you have two in the first 1-2 rounds there, comparative to like at least give me the guy who might be the number one on his team on a team that they've told us they want to pass a shit ton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I've had a hard time with him. I think, well, I had a bias against him last year. And then I was like right for the wrong reasons because I do think he could have had a big year if he had a better offensive coordinator. It wasn't like due to his talent. I do think it's like, it is tough with, should he be going ahead of DeAndre Hopkins? And then on top of that, you are paying a pretty hefty premium for a Will Levis offense. So I think those combined factors have made it hard. Like you think about those other late quarterbacks we were talking about, how all of them, it's like, all right, the Patriots, their first wide receiver comes off the board at like 145. The Broncos comes off the board at 90. Like, the Giants, sure, they have Neighbors, but then all the other pass catchers are late. It is hard. It's been hard for me to get there. But I will say this definitely makes me want to be like more in on Levis on this roster because I know you can say this about any wide receiver, but it sure feels like it for Calvin Ridley. Like he is so directly correlated to Levis making a pretty big leap this year.
Yeah, absolutely is. How do you feel when I tell you he has a dome game in Week 16 track meet against the Colts?
I'm into it, and we'll also have some options for some Colts wide receivers in the triple digits as well.
Yeah, that one sets up nicely too. The Chicago one, now that I'm looking at it, is Detroit. So we do have Gibbs on the team, but it is Soldier Field, not in the dome. So
yeah, I got the draft caddy here with the 16.
Oh, there we go.
Set up. Gibbs versus Chicago, Henry versus the Steelers, Wilson versus the Rams, T versus the Browns, Jaden versus the Saints, and Ridley versus the Colts. So yeah, we haven't pulled off any correlations yet, but we'll get there.
At Derrick Henry, picture this moment. Steelers are fighting, scratching, and clawing to be a fringe wildcard team. They're grasping at straws, so they've now made a quarterback change to Justin Fields. It's the only way they can find their way into the playoffs. Derrick Henry goes, remember me, divisional rivalry, slam it down your throat, 3 touchdowns, and Justin Fields on the way back is what you need.
Yeah, hey, because we were mentioning doing it with the Chiefs wide receivers, but now that we're in the Week 16 tournament, you get to do the Fields Henry one there.
Yeah.
Man, I've been noticing, and again, I never know. People say, is it stream draft rooms, whatever, but CJ Stroud in back-to-back drafts for me has fallen to the 7th round here.
Someone tweeted one earlier at me too, or put it in the Discord earlier, of him falling to the 7th as well. So it is surprising, just in general there, that I don't know, we were jumping up and down the times that he would fall back to the right-hand side of the board to go alongside the Tank Dell drafter, because it meant that both Nico drafter and the Diggs drafter had passed on him. And now it's becoming like almost a regularity that the Tank drafter will have another shot at him in the 5th round if he wants it. 5th or 6th round,
and this
rather.
Is the biggest lesson to me here is, hawking your board, because look at what happened here. The Tank Dell drafter took Mahomes. The Diggs drafter took Allen. And so then the Nico drafter, who took him at 21, just got to sit on it until pick 76. And not saying that, like, you'll see these guys go double elite QB sometimes. It doesn't mean they won't go Stroud Allen, but it definitely makes it less likely. And I think I'm going to file that one away, that there is now chances to get extreme values on Stroud even stacked.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So this is the exact tier I predicted would be available for us at 83, Cortland Sutton. So I don't think we have to force that. By ADP, you're looking at Ingram, Jones. We could do Burrow to just stack up him, or we can push Burrow because I don't think he'll get sniped.
Who would you take if you push Burrow? Let's take Burrow.
I'll just take Burrow because it's easy.
Yeah, because well, just timing wise. I mean, maybe there's someone that we wanted on this, but there was only 3 seconds on the shot clock there. I'm kind of not loving the splits that I've seen with Ingram when Kirk's been healthy versus not. Like I think some of that target stuff might have been a bit of an anomaly last year. I know they paid him and want him to be a focal point of the offense and stuff like that, but I do think they want to be more spread around than getting Evan Ingram the ball 100 more times this year. So I think that's kind of baked into his price right now.
I'm gonna float something for you that I actually know you're gonna love because it's gonna involve a
Okay.
couple of your favorite things. It's gonna involve reaching for uniqueness purposes and one of your favorite players in Zach Moss. Um, Smaller contest, like the bigger team bets are more rewarded here. Even though Zach Moss is a little bit, ADP and 91, we grab him here to just really build out like this. We're saying this is the Bengals squad, Burrow, Moss here. And yes, we're passing on Aaron Jones, Jalen Warren, maybe some of these guys, Ramondre, we like a little bit more, but I think it's going to be unique in this time box relative to the ADPs. And I want to be like leaning into bigger team bets. What do you think? As
Yeah,
it times
good
out.
with it.
Okay. So
No, I'm good with that. I don't know, like the one player in that range who, the Aaron Jones is kind of like a bit of a ceiling wild card to me
yeah,
in that range, but I do like the overarching thesis of like building out a team based bet. I think maybe we could have done the team based bet with instead of Mossy, do it with like Burton and Brown, but I prefer
yeah,
Moss out of that. So pushing up Moss feels good there. I mean, that feels fine.
yeah.
The other,
And
if we didn't,
go ahead.
no, if we didn't take quarterback there, I probably would have suggested Lockett and or Sutton, who went on the other side there just to set up back stacks as well, because I do both like them in isolation and like what they offer us in backstack potential. But getting Burrow there, I think it makes a lot of sense to, build out a big bet on Cincinnati. And I think if people build out a big bet on Cincinnati, it's almost always going to be through Chase, not through Higgins. So I think that's another uniqueness angle for us as well.
Yeah, and I guess the only other note for backdoor stack stuff, Aaron Rodgers, same bye week as Burrow. Levis has a different bye week. Jordan Love still on the board as well. Could consider him. But yeah, I think we have some flexibility how we want to do that. And normally, I think if I was in a regular draft, like we're fully loaded, got Aaron Jones here at 90, like that feels like a smash to
Yep.
me. I think you can make the case you can make the case that Aaron Jones should be going like closer to Kenneth Walker and Joe Mixon than he should be like this range. Because it's like, what are even the concerns with Aaron Jones? Like when he's been healthy, the dude has just been an absolute animal. He catches passes. I wouldn't really call it an offensive downgrade going to Minnesota with all that weaponry there.
Yeah, he's inside now. Good, better. I mean, maybe not better OC, but like comparable coaching tree kind of stuff there. But like the one thing that everyone's always been scared of is that like he's not a volume guy. He's not a volume merchant. He's not the guy that they use at the goal line. And it's like, yeah, and he's still produced. It'll probably be fine if he doesn't get all those goal line touches as we've alluded to in the past. And like this is by far the furthest we've seen his ADP fall down a board in years, right? So yeah, I'm kind of in lockstep with you there. I like the click. I was just looking at one that I did yesterday morning. It's a solo on June 10, 2 days ago, and I got him at 89 as well there as my third running back behind Breece Hall and Joe Mixon. So for whatever reason, he's falling right now. People are pushing up other backs in this tier.
Yeah, and this is, this kind of I talked about this in my video, basically this exact same dynamic. And I basically said, like, it's not that, well, in this room, they are going like a full round earlier than they do, Sutton, Lockett, Curtis Samuel, because, it's an avalanche sharper room.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought on these guys is not that they're bad picks. I think they're stronger picks than the wide receivers who were going in this range last year. It's that the running backs are just such awesome picks in this range. Like all these guys who come off the board here at 90. I mean, Aaron Jones at 90, Ramondre 91, Warren, Zamir, Pollard, James Conner. I mean, all starting running backs, like right there, other than maybe the Warren split with Najee. And so it's just like, man, I hate when I'm swimming against the current of value pockets in the draft. And again, you don't necessarily want to get funneled to that every single time, but it's like having to reach for these wide receivers ahead of the better values is
Right.
always tough for me to swallow.
And I think that's why people are talking about, wide receiver dead zone this year. Like maybe this would be a really good, one-off video for you, Pete. Like just talk about how the running back dead zone was always a thing because we were pushing up these kind of like volume type guys who currently have the job in the 4th and 5th round comparative to the 7th and 8th now. And now there's a wide receiver cliff and a wide receiver dead zone. So it's just the nature of how the contest is like been how the contest has changed in the last 3 years because of how we're drafting structurally.
Yeah. And I think the way I've been playing spots like this is just saying like, okay, you're going to get the better bet than me, but you're going to have to reach to do that. But then I am going to just draft as if my Xavier Legette, Josh Downs, Dontavian Wicks like outscores your Curtis Samuel, Tyler Lockett, Sutton. And I'm going to build
Right.
structurally. And then I'm going to have a better 2v2. Like I'm going to have Aaron Jones and you're going to have Ty Chandler, whatever it is. It's not saying I don't like those guys, but just thinking through the 2v2s of those pockets.
Yep, 100%. And I think that's probably a bull case for like staying in line, like or structurally staying in line with ADP because of that, right?
Yeah.
I would float Njoku if he comes to us. Both these guys have tight ends here. I like him in a vacuum. He gives us a Deshaun backdoor who I'm a little bit over the field, and he gives us week 16 correlation.
Yeah. I'm trying to think here.
You know
Otherwise,
who the other one is. You know who the other one is.
Mike Dub.
It's Big Mike Dub for the double stack. And then we eat double bye weeks for the uniqueness angle, and we tack on a solo naked quarterback. He's
We
gone.
talked too glowingly. No, I think Njoku passed ADP for all of the reasons you mentioned. And that correlation angle makes a ton of sense.
Let's do it. What are your thoughts on redacted there for backdoor stacks and ETR's way ahead of the field on Deshaun, like just in terms of like the ceiling that he offers late comparative to the fact that we've seen it, plus the rushing upside, plus just chalking up last year to injuries. Yeah, what do you think?
So I guess the one thing I would push back on is like I agree. Like you do any projections, he's a value. I don't think he's like easy to backdoor stack, right? Like you have to select Njoku or Judy, like unless you're in love with Elijah Moore. I mean, it's like, okay, I do like the actual backdoor is what, like Deontay Foreman and Elijah Moore, unless there's like a Jamari Thrash truther among us. So it's like I understand that he's a good pick, but I don't consider him like the backdoor stack, where you compared to those other guys where you have all those options.
Yeah, entirely fair. I did it the other day with Elijah Moore plus Foreman. So there was, yeah.
I kind of like, again, like the team level bet. I like this feels like a Tajay Spears with Ridley kind of thing. Give us another out. What do you think there?
Yeah, I can't talk you off. The other thing would be if you want to double stack it with Chase Brown, but we could do it with like Burton or something later instead of handcuffing ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like normally I love the idea of Chase Brown as like my RB4 where I have 3 early and just being like, let me take on this wide range and see if he can just like really pop. But when we kind of reach for Zach Moss, I feel like we kind of want to play that backfield through that and saying it's the Zach Moss smash. But then Spears too, I think it makes the Levis click a little more palatable and then doesn't like force us to make what I would consider pretty gross clicks in Chig or Traylon if you want the double with him.
Yep. Sounds good to me. I don't mind Chig, to be honest. Like just like in terms of buying into like athletic profile, I don't hate it, but yeah, it does feel like he's 6 weeks of zeros potentially at isolated times. Whereas like at least we know what Tajay Spears' floor would be, even if he's working behind Pollard, he's still going to be out there for 35 to 45% of snaps.
Yeah.
And that's like extreme bear case.
Yeah, I wrote about the the Titans backfield in the Fantasy Life newsletter. I think it was last week. And, there were some quotes pulled where they were, I think it was their offensive coordinator talking about it. And, his quote, and they keep it, there's been multiple quotes where they say they want to use these guys interchangeably. And it's kind of funny, right? Because it's like last year, Spears was primarily the pass catching back. That's kind of how they used him, the hurry up situations. And then Pollard was like pigeonholed as like an early down thumper and wasn't even getting that much work. So you would kind of assume they're like, all right, let's do Pollard kind of how he was used. We'll keep Spears rolling how he was. And now they're actually saying we want these guys to be kind of interchangeable, which I think is exciting for both of their fantasy value, because if they are each getting a little bit of both, like if Tajay Spears has outs to like a goal line carrier too, if Pollard has outs to being in some hurry up, like that gives them the chance, I think, to both pay off ADP, even without an injury. And then if one of them gets injured, then you're looking at like a top 12 back.
Yep. No, I like that in a big way. Yeah, it's kind of like baked in safety of role alongside contingent upside for like, even if they play well, right? Like, I mean, yeah, like they can, like the contingent upside doesn't have to come at the risk of injury. It can just come at they played well within that role. Like the classic hot hand that pisses us off when we draft them in the daily streets, but is good in best ball.
And I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show, but I do love, because I take a lot, like Spears and Chase Brown are like two of my favorite clicks in this range, but I love doing like the flip flop pairings of like Pollard with Chase Brown and Spears with Zach Moss, because I do know like most of the people who like to draft like me, they profile more as like, I'll take both Spears and Chase Brown and fade Zach Moss and Tony Pollard, but like playing those backfields, or I don't know if I've done a Pollard Moss yet, but like playing that through more unconventional ways.
Yeah, the Pollard Moss is like the gross combo that like I do.
Yeah. I click Pollard a decent amount just because he's the guy that'll fall like to pick 100 a decent amount of times.
Yeah, for sure. He's he does seem in certain rooms to be the guy that falls to the end of that middle tier that we were alluding to in the 8th round.
Yeah.
Pete, Interest is asking what the 50D. Can you explain the caddy?
Yeah, so this is Brick's Draft Caddy, and unfortunately, the way like the screen share works, you can't see me do it. But right now, when I hover over it, so the 150 is saying for BBM4 drafts last year, how many did they do? So we can see here we had a room with a ton of 150 maxers. Our guy Feel Gnarly did 30 here. J Pop did 91, and then when I hover over it, I get some data about their draft tendencies specifically in BBM4. So how often did they do 3 quarterback builds? What was, how much closing line value did they get? And there's a value hound ratio, scroll the F down. So it's kind of a way to, if you want to quickly profile an opponent, and John can definitely speak to this from like the poker days of why that stuff can be valuable.
I think it's like the next iteration of our games is like really taking the peer-to-peer element into play. Right? Like that'll be the next like edge angle. Cause right now we're kind of in this like primitive state where we're still trying to solve like what's optimal roster construction, what's optimal in terms of bringbacks, what's optimal in terms of correlation patterns. And then all of a sudden, once we all get schooled in that, like the GTO angle of like the next step will be like, okay, Pete's in my room. How do I exploit Pete comparatively to how I exploit fully loaded in this room? Okay, I know Pete's a piss boy. Okay, let's put him in some tough spots by pissing harder in front of him, or whatever the mantra becomes, right?
Yep. I think we need at least one wide receiver out of these 2 picks, and probably 2.
Is it too early for Burton?
No, I think we can, because he's probably not coming back.
We could do Burton or Downs. Downs stacks with the week 16. Downs just went.
I'll get Burton here, because if we're gonna take him with one of these 2 picks, because I doubt he's coming back to 155, 7 picks past ADP in this room.
Yeah, probably not. He seems like the profile of a player that people will push up. I mean, not entirely necessary to like double or triple, but I think once we've made the bet, it feels smart. What are we looking at for quarterback, Pete?
Yeah, so quarterback, there is Goff with Gibbs, but that stack doesn't make it move enough for me when we also have the Deshaun out and the Will Levis out.
Yeah, agreed. And
there's nothing at tight end here. The best values are all running backs.
We could triple down on the Cleveland stuff and take Chubb and be like, he's back for this stretch. And then set it up for like a Deshaun thingy, but that might almost negative correlation to some extent.
Yeah, my only thing is like Chubb's been falling a lot, and I do think we're like done at running back if we go running back here. That's my only thought. It does stink because now we're doing the inverse of we're now having to reach on these guys. I would float one of these rookies like Polk, Leggett, or Pearsall.
Let's do Pearsall.
Okay.
Doesn't it feel like Pearsall has the most outs to relevancy there? Like Carolina obviously has a they brought in Johnson. They are bringing in Hakeem Butler for a tryout. They're doing things to have bodies in that room. Whereas like San Fran feels like the cleanest out to removing a potential player there via trade, via holdout, via whatever. Like, doesn't it feel like he has the and then the Polk one, I guess, is just like I just keep going back to why take Polk when you can take the cheaper pieces in the last round and make kind of the same bet.
I think it's the Pearsall click is tough for people because it really is like he's not going to play his way onto the field, right? Because he's just so good. Right. It's just like it's going to be a contingent bet. And then if that contingency happens, it's great. I mean, it's the same reason we're taking any of these running backs. It's like, why are you taking the Seahawks running back 2 here? Anytime you can take the guy who's on the bench, you could go down the line with all the contingent bets. I think it's just hard for people to wrap their head around because you generally can get wide receiver 3s in this range who are going to be on the field. But like juxtapose Ricky Pearsall to Jahan Dotson, right? It's like we now have some pretty good evidence that Jahan Dotson isn't as good as we wanted him to be. They have a new quarterback. They've added more competition, spend a pick on Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott. Like, sure. Is he guaranteed to be on the field like more earlier than Ricky Pearsall? I think so. But like the unknown of Ricky Pearsall's profile, what they spent on him, and then the contingent upside, it's like when things break Ricky Pearsall's way, I think they smash harder than when they break in Jahan Dotson's way this year.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention that the team could score 15 more touchdowns than the Washington could. And it's like, okay, well, Dotson scores 4 this year. Well, Ricky Pearsall plays 1,000 less snaps than him and scores 4 as well.
Yeah.
But we baked in the ceiling outcome of if someone gets hurt or someone leaves, and now he's in a Shanahan offense as WR2.
Yeah. And like, I get like one thing I want to do, and I'm writing about this in my article because some of these guys are my most clicked. All these guys right here, Pearsall, Polk, Leggett, Burton, and these guys, there's a reason they all go around the same range, right? Like very similar tier. I personally don't have enough confidence that one is a significantly better bet than the others. And Pearsall doesn't feel the funnest to click for that very reason. But I am just treating him almost like a contingent back. It's like, is it that much different than the Jalen Wright stuff? Right? Like, I mean, Jalen Wright is a contingent bet. It's very unlikely that both Mostert and Achane stay fully healthy and Wright is a smash. I think he could have a role even if those guys stay healthy, but is a total smash? He needs an injury. Like Ty Chandler. Is he going to be a smash without? So I think he's
Ty Chandler is the one that I'll leave the door open for. Ty Chandler
take over.
I'd leave the door open for Ty Chandler. But outside of that, I'm in lockstep with you.
And there's varying degrees. Like I love Marshawn Lloyd for that same reason. Like I think he could have a standalone role right out of the gate. But I'm not lying to myself when I click Ricky Pearsall. I'm not saying like he's going to be so good at camp. He's getting out there. The team just extends Jawan Jennings, but just trying to be like humble about like where the Niners took him and what that opportunity is in that offense. Like I just on my last draft did a Purdy, Kittle, Pearsall, where it's like, man, we know if one of Debo or Ayuk get hurt, like Kittle's often been the biggest beneficiary there.
Good with Algier here. Good with Malachi Corley and doing a double stack on the Jets. Good with, I'd leave tight end still. and take like 2 other guys. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's do Malachi. I like getting another rookie wide receiver here. Like you said, we now have 2 Jets.
shared
Does
bye
this
week quarterbacks. Let's go.
or we should talk out like after this pick, like, would you be more willing to eat it just because of it's a 4 of 12 instead of 2 of 12?
I think if we eat it, I would tack on a third. And given the
Yeah.
capital that we spent at Burrow, it's probably not optimal. So we could probably just push Rodgers and Deshaun and see who comes back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that might be getting kind of greedy. I don't know how many people have 2 quarterbacks on the other side of the board, but
Yeah. So we're at a 1-4-7-1 build. I'll do a full recap of the team after this pick. I think I agree with you about pushing quarterback.
Jaleel.
Yeah. And then shut it down at quarterback or running back, I mean.
Yeah, what do you like better? Jaleel, Vidal. Gibson doesn't give us really any Buffalo. No, there's no correlation between them. I think I like Jaleel the best.
I like that too. I mean, he's the week 17 guy opposite our big Bengals stuff there. All right, here's the team so far. So we got Burrow at quarterback. We got a 5 running back room, pretty high T today. Jameer Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Zach Moss, Tajay Spears, Jaleel McLaughlin. That feels to me like we're done at running back. Wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Jane Reed, Calvin Ridley, and then the rookie brigade, Jermaine Burton, Ricky Pearsall, and Malachi Corley, and then tight end Njoku. So I do think this could be. So how many picks do we have left? 1, 2, 3, 4. And
I think
you could easily do two more quarterbacks, 2 more tight ends potentially.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'd be totally comfortable, especially in a format where you advance 4 out of 12, and we have to hit less of the nuts in the regular season there, and you can just cover for playoff weeks to have spike potential from the onesies positions. Not the greatest strategy in the world. I think I prefer spending 5 picks than spending 6, but I think 2 tight ends and at least 1 more quarterback. And then the other one will be a swing pick between quarterback or wide receiver.
Yes. And I am just looking at this room. I think I am. If we have a wide receiver we like, I think I might push us there. I think I'm comfortable with a 2 tight end room here, depending on who's available for us.
Okay.
But we can see.
Yeah, normally when I take tight end outside of like ADP 11, I end up with 3. That's just kind of been like my non-scientific rule of thumb and what I've been doing. Whether it's right or not, who knows?
Yeah.
But I have been pretty tethered to the notion of spending 5 picks at the onesies comparative to 6. But that's also because of how I've been spending draft capital comparatively. We did see on stream the other day, I think it was King of Kings, did a very interesting strategy where he just went full punt until like the 16th round or something like that, 15th round on tight end and quarterback, and then just took 6 straight that all filled back stacks or filled stacks.
Yeah, that can be a tricky strategy to pull off unless I think you need it to where like you're probably comfortable reaching a little bit. Like say you got the 2 Seahawks wide receivers and you're like, I'm just locking up Geno around past ADP because like this team, I can't make it work needing 3 quarterbacks like without getting this double stack completed.
Yeah.
But I do think like because Burrow and Njoku, we're playing those guys as like we drafted them. They're both each outside the elites, right? You know, Burrow just outside the elite QBs, Njoku just outside the elite tight ends. But then we basically have the choice, like positional allocation. Do we want to treat them as if they have the elite season? And if that's the case, then you don't necessarily need the third. You know, you just play it as a typical elite with a second.
Well, if you were to make the choice, which of those 2 players, like just irregardless of capital spent, do you think has a better shot to finish top 5 at their position this season?
Well, I think both my real answer and like the answer for the reality of this team is Burrow.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe
And
that funnels us to the tight end side.
yeah. Yeah, because we've just said like holy shit. And I guess the other question will be like say if Watson went and we went Rodgers, then that would also funnel us to the third quarterback in that. And Watson does
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Well, Watson does it. Yeah, okay. Is
Yep.
that the Amari drafter?
Neil took or not oh yeah, Amari and he had set it up with Judy. So he had that double stack there.
Right. Maybe if we were I still don't think I would have taken I still would have pushed Deshaun. Even if I
Yeah.
known he'd set up a double and I knew that he only had Goff on that side of the board, I'd still push Deshaun and take Jaleel on this side of the board.
I don't actually think we're going to get Rodgers either because OMG has Mike Dubb and Anthony Richardson. So we can start thinking I think Levis is definitely the pick there for us.
Okay.
And then it's just looking at oh wow, and then OMG got sniped on Rodgers. Oh wow, that was a brutal snipe run there.
We could do Geno plus Fant.
Ooh.
Do Geno plus Fant and then push just take Fant first and then push Levis and then we can decide again.
I like that. Okay. I like that. Good call. And then we can go I think we're still now going to go like a third tight end. And
yeah, I was just looking at that.
Well, I was thinking too of like, we could just do Conklin and just like play that without the, with the quarterback. But I'm completely fine. Like a Geno Burrow, I'm like completely fine with that as a 2 quarterback room.
Yes, likewise.
And then the only thing that stings is now I'd like that Aaron Jones value pick back because of the we got the week 16 Seattle
Minnesota.
Yeah.
That actually maybe that's it's in Seattle. I was gonna say we get a little extra bonus there that Geno stacks look better because they're indoors for 16, but they're not. This is funny. OMG's in the chat here saying I'll take Geno over Rodgers so I don't get crucified, and then he ends up getting sniped on Rodgers.
No, Roger, you would have been well within your right to take Rodgers there. So we do have we're now up to the 2 on the onesies, and I think we're good at quarterback unless it smacks us over the face with something we really like. I think to me, I would like to do a third tight end and an 8th wide receiver, ideally.
I mean, you can double down on the Tennessee bet without taking Levis too, and you can take Tyler Boyd on this team.
Yeah, this would be a team that would make a lot of sense with Boyd. I guess too, like we should probably just be open to Chig as well for that same reason.
Yep.
I also think Gesicki, just for the stack purpose. So I think we actually have a lot of options at tight end.
Yep, good shout. Tight end, I feel totally fine with. But I do think 3 is the answer now that we got that Geno Fant thing and then the overlapping buys for the tight end.
Yeah.
Overlapping buys for tight end in a format where you advance 4 out of 12, does that feel... It feels more palatable than the quarterback one, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because with these dust balls, I mean, the tight end we're adding here could easily be a 0.
Unless it's Johnny.
We got, looks like we got 300 people watching right now across a few different platforms. If you guys aren't on the YouTube, make sure you get over here, subscribe to the BadgeBros YouTube channel. You guys are streaming. What is near daily? Is that how you would describe it?
I would describe 4 days a week, no matter what. But yes, near daily would be the way to say it. I think between 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern start time each day, given whatever else is going on, we try and dodge, your shows. We try and dodge leg up shows and some of the other stuff that's going on there. So it's usually a 1 or a 2 start, and then at least 2 of the 4 shows are football related, and this being one of them every single week.
Yep. Often on the clock. We aim for every Wednesday at 2 p.m., slightly after 2 p.m. because the Soulcast never finishes on time. So I appreciate your patience always with that, John.
It's all good. I'm probably watching anyways. We just saw the Levis Chig thing on the other side of the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder,
I'm really glad you suggested that, because instead of putting us at risk of like really needing to complete that stack, like locking in the stack, we still get the benefits of our Tennessee stuff. We don't need Levis to make that work with Spears and Ridley. I mean, we do in that we need him to support production, but from our structural reason, we don't need that.
Yeah, what do you feel about I mean, I guess it's probably a bad comparison when Tajay could be a pass catching running back, but what do you think when you do pair like running back, wide receiver, and then tacking on quarterback versus like just doing skinny stack like we did there? Like we've already kind of it's probably better to have a skinny stack from a different team environment to shoot ceiling than it is to tack on the quarterback to running back and wide receiver, because then you're asking for like 4 touchdowns from the same game, and one of them is passing to a running back comparatively.
Yeah. And I think I definitely would probably feel that way in BBM. But in this format where it's so small, it's just like, man, let's just hit on the offense that, like, our bet is that the Bengals are like a top 3 offense this year. I think Gesicki just makes so much sense.
Yeah, Gesicki feels like the easy pick here.
And then we do, what was our, are there any other week 16 stuff we needed here?
Okay, let's look.
This is your scroll down, John. This is your time to shine in our time box here.
Oh, I like the Tyler Boyd for this team. I like the Khalif. I like the Khalif Raymond for the Detroit stuff, though we don't have a Chicago piece. Elijah Moore feels redundant when we've already made 2 Browns bets, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Josh Reynolds.
Josh Reynolds, 17. Yeah.
But we already have the McLaughlin. I kind of think Boyd makes sense on this team where we have kind of 3 really thin rookies.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, but Boyd or Khalif would be the 2 obvious ones, I think.
Yeah, let's do Boyd. Like getting one other guy here on the Tennessee offense. So now we have the big Bengals stack. We have the Tennessee stack without Levis. And then we have the Geno skinny. And then we also have the Jet stack without Rodgers. So we basically built out 4 stacks. And then just with the 2 quarterback build, which I like.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The super gal brain one would have been Parker Washington. And he works as the 17 bring back off of the 2 Tennessee pieces that we already have.
Yes.
I guess Tank Bigsby, but we were tapped out at running back.
Yes. Yeah, here's the final squad. Joe Burrow and Geno at quarterback. Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Zach Moss, Tajay Spears, Jaleel McLaughlin at running back. Wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Jaden Reed, Calvin Ridley, Jermaine Burton, Ricky Pearsall, Malachi Corley, and Tyler Boyd. And then 3 tight ends, Njoku, Noah Fant, and Gesicki. I like how this team turned out. I definitely like reached more in this draft than I normally do. But again, with a more time box contest, that'll probably fill here within the week. I don't mind it near as much. And I think we built a pretty strong one here.
Yeah, I mean, the get your guys season knowing that we're not going to get crushed on CLV, 3 months from now or 2.5 months from now.
Yeah. Yep.
I like this squad though. It didn't start traditionally how you or I normally draft together, like in taking 2 running backs in the first 4 picks, and then having our second wide receiver be a little bit of a reach in quotations. But I think we landed decently. I think reaching on T. Higgins feels better now that it's paired with Burrow and an onslaught and a game stack, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's what makes it more palatable by maximizing that 4th round pick. Basically made a concentrated bet that T. Higgins is going to be, a guy you need.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I do really like in these smaller ones trying to do a couple big team stacks. And so I love like the quarterback, the running back, 2 wide receivers, and the tight end. It's just like everything on this team comes down to the Bengals being a top 3 offense, basically. And if that hits, like this team is going to do well. And if not, GG's, we got 2 more Dalmatians to draft.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of offenses that are like non-chalk, well, I guess maybe Bengals are flirting with chalk in the onslaught variety. But in terms of like, people normally go to the San Fran, they go to the Lions, they go to Miami all the time, they go to trying to get the Hurts double stack going. In terms of non-chalk offenses that could flirt with best in the league, Bengals got to be decently close.
Yes. I think so too. And there's just, we've already seen it, right? Like we know what the best version of this offense looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're having a, manufacture hopium about it. It's it all just coming together for the year. Yeah. John, this has been a good time as always here on Off and On the Clock. Anything else you'd like to mention to the people?
Yeah, my guy Kiwi Cat was asking. Oh, 2 things actually. 2 things. Let me start before I say the Kiwi Cat thing. Underdog has heard the feedback on the new push notifications and the heads up on the clock. Blah blah blah. It's a very good idea for someone who is drafting either slow drafts and or drafting BBM fasts, and you're sometimes 20 picks away from picks. And then, if there's a little bit of lag in your app or there's a little bit of, something happens, you don't just jump back on the clock and see that all your previously starred players are gone. And now I'm on the clock with 12 seconds to make a decision. Now you have that 1 pick buffer. I think it's a very good idea for those contests. It was awful for us who were trying to jam 10, 15 dailies at lock. Feedback has been heard. It's going to stay for the fast drafts for football. It's going to go for the BBM streets. So just wanted people to know that update is coming next couple days or something. That was just information via Numi that I had there. And then the Kiwi Cat was asking for some pick'em stuff to use tonight for whether it be I haven't done the full-fledged baseball slate stuff because I was doing the early one. So I don't have any of that, but I am jumping on with the, I don't know where the promo one is. The promo one went away on me, but I'm jumping on the lowers on the Derek Lively stuff, the lowers on the Maxi Kleber 3-pointers, the higher on Daniel Gafford. So I'm basically making a correlated bet that the bigs switching the rotations tonight is going to run through Gafford. And then I got on some Al Horford stuff that has since gone up since the Porzingis news, but that's kind of like where I was making my bet. I think Josh Green finds his way somewhat out of the rotation. So if you can still get the lower on 3.5 points there, that's something I was going. I think they go Dante Exum tonight. I think they go Tim Hardaway Jr. So if they drop some of those auxiliary Mavs ones as well, that's the stuff that I'll be pairing with later tonight for NBA Finals Game 3 in Dallas.
There you go. I keep sharing those entries so I can tail here. For me, let's see. Gonna hopefully have a video coming out either later tonight or tomorrow morning. My 10 takeaways through 50 drafts. Kind of, if you've been watching all my streams, you've probably heard me like mention them here and there, but trying to like put them into one place of kind of how I want to attack drafts the rest of the way. Also gonna have a piece on Fantasy Life, looking at more my specific exposures and using the Fantasy Life Hub to pull out some of those quirks like I was talking about with the Caleb Williams, Tyler Lockett dynamic. We will have
great visualization tool.
Yeah. And it's completely free. You just download your CSV like you would otherwise, upload it to your Fantasy Life account, and you're good to go there. And then ship chasing, I think tomorrow we're going to do our scariest fades. So the guys that were like not intentionally like fading because you're like, yeah, I just don't think he's going to be good. But the ones where it's like you only have 2% of them and you don't really know why, those kind of guys. So that'll be fun. And then the randomizer, John, we're having another Canadian on, Jacob Sanderson. We got a ton of prompts already cooking. That will be tomorrow night, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
Nice. Grill them on some Stanley Park knowledge or something.
Exactly. All right. This has been a blast. We will see you guys around. Good luck in the rest of your Dalmatians and mini schnauzers and all of that good stuff. We'll see you next time.